received a call to come into the comm center and was notified about a sailing vessel taking on water, kind of in the vicinity of Smith Island, which is just to the north and east of us here. And they were taking on water. They were having significant problems with their engines and requesting assistance from the Coast Guard. So
When we took off, it was still light outside, but when we got to the area, it was actually really dark. It was a dark night. Little illumination. We had MVGs, but it was still just really dark. And we could tell that there were boats in the area, but we couldn't tell which one it was. So we could hear them on the radio, and they were giving us call-outs. When they heard us fly over, how loud the helicopter was, we got over top and moved away. They shot off a flare so we could find the boat easier that way. We recognized the boat. Still really dark on scene, but we got into a hover to be able to get a closer look at what was going on.
When we found them, it was pretty severe seas, and they had a pretty tall mast, so we were sort of unable to deploy pumps. Quite an intricate procedure, and if anything gets caught on our hoist cable, then that's not a good thing. So we realized that giving them the pump straight to the boat would probably be too hard. We waited for the small boats, Coast Guard boats, to arrive.
Unfortunately, the weather deteriorated even more, and the small boat went out of their limits. So that's winds around 40 knots, and then seas above 10 feet is what they were calling. So they had to turn around at that point.
I had to tell them that we couldn't get boats to them because the weather was too bad, the waves were too bad, and our boats couldn't get there. So they had to make the decision whether they were going to come into the helicopter with us or whether they wanted to stay.
Hoisting to a sailboat at night, and it was a dark night, that's moving around as much as it was in the sea. There's a lot of snag hazards. It's got a tall mast, a lot of lines. So my biggest concern was just how to get Mike to them to help them without getting anybody hurt or entangled.
Well, we decided that the mast was swinging far too much in the seas. So the concern of putting me in the water and then getting me onto the actual vessel raised too many options. So behind the sailing vessel was a small little dinghy they had. We requested that both the individuals climb into the dinghy. We would deploy me to the water. The moment I was in the water, we asked them to cut themselves loose from the main vessel.
That was something else we had to think about, was limiting the amount of time that they were actually in the water. Because it doesn't take very long in cold water like this, especially with high winds, because that'll even cool you down even faster for people to lose dexterity, to lose they don't think straight, they can't, it's just not a very good situation to be in for anyone.
It was pretty chaotic. The wind and the water were loud enough that there was very little communication between us. And they were sort of in a shocked way that they weren't comprehending a lot of what I was saying. The dinghy was also rolling around pretty hard. In between hoists, I had to grab the dinghy and swim it into the waves so that it wasn't getting bucked around so much. Waves were pretty severe. I'd lose the survivors in between swells. If I dropped down the trough, I'd have to wait for them again.
And between hoists, we pulled the first one up pretty quickly, but the winds in the sea states were so rough that by that time, where Mike was still in the water, the dinghy was probably 1,000 yards beyond, so we had to hoist Mike up in the basket, relocate, and then do the same thing again.
Because Mike had the good sense to put a strobe on the second survivor when he's still in the dinghy. If he hadn't have done that, we would have had to take the time to try and locate him again, which would have been hard to do because it would have been nighttime. So we had to pick up Mike and possibly circle and orbit until we found that other survivor.
Rescue survivor, clear the water, clear from back and left. Okay. Back survivor coming up, rescue submarine is at our 3 o'clock position.
All right, 3 o'clock, and cease command.
I think the most important thing though is that as a crew, I mean, it's not one person rescuing these people. It takes an entire crew to do it, and you feel a sense of gratitude that you work with such good people.
It's why people join the Coast Guard, is to be able to do a job like this. And now that I actually do that, it's very much just kind of everyday operations, this is what we do, and we're good at it.
The enormity of this event is overwhelming as far as the recognition that's being placed on us. I think we did a really great job, and I'm excited to be able to help people. But when it's always kind of unnerving when people say, "Hey, you're a hero." This is what we train to do, and I'm happy to be able to help.
Please welcome tonight's awardees for the Heroic Action Award. Please welcome to the stage from Air Station Port Angeles, Lieutenant Jason Bustamante, Lieutenant Kelly Higgins, AMT-2 Samuel Allen, and AST-3 Michael Van Borman.